Welcome to Better Outcomes. This is Denise Metellus. This is our second video for this new channel that just started. Today is a privilege for me to join with you to this channel so we can discuss God's Word. Once again, today we're going to be talking about a different topic. And the topic for today is about the power, exploring the power and the benefits of obedience. Obedience, what is obedience? Obedience is following someone's word. Obedience is choosing to listen to someone's words, carrying out their will, carrying out their word, their will, and it's not doing your will, but doing their will. So obedience is to listen to someone's voice and do what they ask you to do. That is obedience. But obedience is also linked to something called hearing. In order for you to obey, you must be able to hear. And once you hear clearly the instructions, now you listen carefully, you hear the instructions, you must be willing to obey, to carry out that duty, to carry out that task, to follow that person's will, to do their work that is assigned to you. So in other words, the person that is so-called obedient must be very coachable. What do I mean by coachable? I want you to think for a moment, if you're very knowledgeable in the subject matter, especially if it's something that you've studied or something that you know, and to have someone else coming in and telling you how to handle your business, how to do certain things, it could be very challenging. You could deal with what they call a power struggle, not accepting the fact that I have to follow what you're saying. So being obedient, you must be coachable. You must be able to let go of your old ways, accept the new ways of that person, that leader that is guiding you through the process. Being obedient has so many benefits to it, but yet it can be challenging at first. As I said earlier, if you are knowledgeable and whoever it is, they're bringing a topic on something that you already know, if you're not willing to obey, to listen carefully, to follow the instructions, which ultimately would lead to something different, a different outcome, you may not get anywhere. Because inside of you might have what they call the true power struggle, where you don't want to let go because you're stuck in your old ways. Today's topic is about obedience. We're going to talk to you a little bit more about this by looking at a chapter in the Bible, which is found in Luke chapter 5. And it starts from verse 1 to verse 10. It's a story when Jesus has called his disciples. And it was a very interesting call. Well, the Bible tells us in Luke chapter 5, from verse 1 through 10, it tells us a story when Jesus called his disciples. And the way he did it, the first calling was about being obedient. He asked them to go on a boat. Got to the boat, started teaching. Through the teaching, shortly after, he asked them, let's go a little deeper in the water. But what was interesting about the story is the fact that those disciples who were called by Jesus, they were already professionals. Some of them were already what they call professional fishermen. So they knew already how to catch fish. They did not need Jesus to show them how to catch fish. No, they were knowledgeable enough because that's what they were doing for a long time. But interestingly, that day, Jesus called them, got them on the boat, And he said, let's go a little further, deeper in the water. But prior to that, I got to tell you, they had already, those fishermen that particular day while they were fishing, they could not catch any fish. So the nighttime came, they couldn't catch any fish. They had already given up. Mind you, that's a specialty. That's what they do for a living. But that particular day, they could not catch any fish. So what they were doing, they were washing the nets. Meaning, game over, finish, done, kaput. We going home. Well, Jesus called them. And Jesus said, let's go a little deeper in the water. So they got deeper in the water, and Jesus told them to cast the nets. And it was very interesting how he said, cast your net at a specific area. The disciples were struggling with that. And Simon opened his mouth and he said, Master, we have spent all night. We couldn't catch anything. Now, I want you to pause for a moment. Simon is speaking, is one of the disciples. He's speaking from his knowledge base. He understands that as a professional, that's what he does on a regular basis. But that particular day, he couldn't catch anything. So he let it be known to Jesus right away. By the way, I couldn't catch anything. So he didn't want to say, who are you to tell us what to do? But in a few words, that's what he's basically saying. We've been doing this all day long. So I don't know what's your new strategy, but this is something we've been doing all day long. We couldn't catch anything. But in that particular verse, I want to open my Bible so you can know exactly what I'm saying. It's Luke chapter 5. It starts from verse 1. But I'm going to jump with you to verse 5. It says, Simon answered, Master, we have worked hard all night and have not caught anything. But because you say so, I will let down the nets. Because you say so, I will let down the net. Because you're the master, I will let down the net. Unto your words, I will cast the nets. Because you say so. Well, verse 6 says something very important. It says, when they had done so, there's a time. When they had done so, they caught such a large number of fish that their nets began to break. I'm going to sound a little bit repetitive, but when you go back to verse 5, when Simon answered, Master, we have worked hard all night. We did it, but could not catch anything. So all of a sudden we go from anything to everything. We go from zero to multitude. We go from nothing to everything. Because in verse 6, it's clearly stated, it says, such a large number of fish that their nets began to break. Now they are facing an emergency. It's an emergency with a multitude. At first, it was boring. It was lonely. It was hopeless because they couldn't catch anything. But now they have such a multitude of fish. The nets were broken. So now they're calling for backup. Verse 7, so they signal their partners in the other boat to come up and help them. Come and help us out with the blessings. It's amazing how when you tap into God's power, your blessings can multiply. You can go from zero to nothing. You can go from zero to multitude when you tap into the source. When you stop relying on your own resources and let God be the source of your everything. All that happened through obedience. So verse 7 says that they signaled the partners in the other boat to come and help them. And they came and filled both boats. So they so fully that they began to sink. Now we're having a bigger problem. The boats were sinking now. First it was the nets that broke. Now it's the boats that are sinking. So many fish. Verse 8 says, when Simon Peter saw this, he fell at Jesus' knees. It's a sign of honor. And I can understand Simon Peter, who spoke initially on verse 5 when he said, Master, we've worked all night. We couldn't catch anything. We don't want to disobey. We don't want to sound rude to you. We're going to cast the net because you say so. And to his surprise, when he looked, he saw so many fish. He was totally in shock. So he fell on his knees and honored Jesus. When you realize how much God can do in your life, if only you obey, well, when the miracle comes, you have no other choice but to fall on your knee and start honoring. Because you're going to be astonished about what happened. You're going to be in awe. You're going to be in shock. Because you didn't expect all of that. And that's what God does all the time. He's always going beyond your expectations. That's why you can never get him all figured out. If you can only obey and follow his instructions and take it from there. Just tap into his source. Tap into his words. Follow his words. Follow his instructions. And let the word work through you. How much work they had to do that day? They spent the entire day, the entire evening trying to fish, couldn't catch anything. But by following what they call a simple instruction, by being obedience, they discovered so much more. And I want you to explore with me the benefits of this wonderful obedience when they decided to obey. What has happened here? Now they're able to feed the entire community. Because they caught so many fish. The community benefit from their obedience. Because what happens when you disobey God? It brings judgment. But when you obey, it brings blessing. But what I like about the blessing is not just about you. You rip part of the blessings, but it's also for others. So every time someone obeys, everyone benefits. I want you to look with me with verse 9 where it says, for all his companions were astonished at the catch of fish. They could not believe what they saw. They were having trouble believing what they were seeing. And on the last verse, it says, then Jesus said to Simon, now Jesus spoke, don't be afraid from now on. You will be fishers of men. You will be fishers of men. So they pulled away their boats up on the shore. They left everything and followed him. It's amazing after you tap into the source and notice everything that you benefited from. Now it's no longer material things for you. It's more spiritual. It's more about growing the kingdom. It's more about looking to help others. It's more about transforming what's around you, who's around you. It's all about transformation. You're no longer stuck into the material. Yes, you need the material to survive, absolutely. Mind you, they were fisher of men. Excuse me, they were fishermen prior to that calling. So that's what they were doing for a living. So that they were depending on that to live on a regular basis. But after they met Christ, the abundance of what they can get from him after tapping into him, to him, they felt like, you know what? Forget about the fish. We're not into fish anymore. We want to grow a little deeper. We want to work with you. We want to follow you. We want to sit at your feet. We want to honor you. We want you to be our master. We want to depend on you. Being obedient is very powerful. Very powerful. But are you willing to let yourself go completely and follow his will? He has a calling in your life. Perhaps for you to be obedient in something, I'm not sure what it is. You know. But can you realize the power of obedience? How one simple thing that you've done and everyone else can benefit from that move. Because those disciples, I'm going to close the Bible. Those disciples could have chosen that day not to do anything. They could have been very rebellious, saying, hey, by the way, we know how to fish prior. We met you. Excuse me. We know what we're doing. Thank you so much. You're not going to come and tell us how to fish. We know how to do that. But they chose to do otherwise. Follow the instructions. Be obedient. And through their obedience, they reaped the benefits. Abundance, blessing. And when you have abundance, it's time to share. When you have abundance, you don't keep it all to yourself. When you obey God and you start reaping the abundance of his blessings, you don't keep it all for yourself. So at the end of the day, you will use as an instrument so others can benefit. So all those disciples had to do that day was to obey the word. Follow his command. Tapping into his source. Denying who they are. And accepting that Jesus would giving them the right instructions that's going to lead them into the right path. Versus arguing their ways, power struggle, oh, I can do it myself. No. You've got to realize that you can do all things, but only through Christ who strengthens you. So he's your direct source. He's your direct power. It's not about what you know. Yes, you may know this. Disciples exactly know how to fish, but they couldn't do it that day, unfortunately. It was not possible. And the moment he gave that specific instruction, it was done. And there were numerous fish, abundant, large number. Nobody knew how to handle all those fish, what to do. Everybody was in shock. The whole community, they had so much fish. And you know what? You know what's interesting? What I found very interesting? In a situation like this, if you're the type of person that likes to deal with the material, all you're seeing is the material, that's the time you could have said, you know what? I'm going to use Jesus just to provide only. No. They had a new mindset. They were transformed. Now it's no longer commercial. It's no longer things that we must provide each other. No, 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 no. Now it was about the spiritual aspect of it. Let's go and become fishers of men. Let's go build the kingdom, preach the gospel. And Jesus had to have that little demonstration right there and then to begin the journey with them. Mind you, if they were not receptive, if they were not obedient, it would have been very challenging. But they obeyed, even though they had the knowledge base, even though they were fishermen prior to all of that. But they chose to accept the fact that God is not about me, it's about you. And I'm willing to listen to you. I'm willing to obey. And the moment they obeyed, things have changed. Nets were broken. Boats were sinking. Fish all over the place. You're talking about a positive chaos. Not negative, a positive chaos. You're talking about a mess. A positive mess. Where there was a message. And that's how the calling started. The power of obedience. It's time for you to start exploring the power and the benefits of obedience. Because through your obedience, others can benefit. Perhaps your entire family, your neighborhood. We don't know. They can all benefit through your obedience. Through Jesus' obedience, we have been saved. Through Adam's disobedience, we were dead spiritually. Hope this story resonates with you today. If you're struggling with obedience, you can understand and explore obedience in a new level. Understand the purpose of obedience. At the end of the day, it's about God, but it's for your benefit as well. And others that are around you, and growing the kingdom as well. If this word resonates with you, please like, share, comment, and subscribe. Thank you. Be blessed, and I will see you in the next video.